so hopefully this works out. So welcome everybody to our second live stream. You can hear no lag, that's good. Oh, you are lagging, Neon Tetra Aquarius. The chat is ahead of the video, okay. Jordan asks, is this going to become a regular schedule thing? Right now I am just testing it out, and I'm thinking I may do it several times a month. I'm not sure whether it will be a weekly thing or whether I will do it just a few times a month. So I haven't figured that out. I guess it depends on the response that we get. So Laura asks, how are the fish? The fish are all doing okay. We've got a few that aren't doing so good right now, so they're in a quarantine tank, and we've got new fish that are in quarantine as well. So, Neon Tetra Aquarius says it's all caught up. That is really good to hear. Fishboy11, I am new to YouTube. Any good tips and tricks? I'm assuming you're talking about your YouTube channel. If that is the case, then I would just say to post regularly, to make sure that your content is as correct as it can be, and to do good thumbnails and tag your videos really well. If it's that you're new to fish keeping, then I would just say do a lot of research on the fish that you're planning on taking care of. All right. Okay, so if you want to go ahead in the chat and ask any questions that you have, and how has the new tank been going? It has been going okay. We have had several issues with it right from the start. Once we put the fish in, we had a huge ick outbreak, so that was a real headache, especially with it being such a big tank. But we did treat it, and we are about almost a week clear now. So I do think that we are all good on that. But some of the fish did end up getting extremely stressed through it all, and a few of them have ended up with fin rot in the tails. It's not the beta fish, it's some of the new fish that we've put in. So they have gone into a quarantine tank, and hopefully with treatment they should do okay. So yeah, I guess it's going okay. So Joy Aquarium asks, how many fish do I have now? We have a lot. Beta fish, we're actually back to 12. Last week on the live stream I did get asked, were we going to get any more beta fish? And I answered not straight away, or we didn't have any plans to. And then of course I went to PetSmart and I saw a very sick little guy, and I did actually end up bringing him home. So he is under treatment right now because he is very, very sick. We discovered he had velvet, which we've never dealt with before. So we're on our first case of treating velvet, and hopefully he will do okay. But yeah, we have a lot of fish throughout. We've got 7 fish tanks in total. So, okay, Laura asks, I am planning on getting goldfish in the future. Anything I really need to know? I know tank sizes and all that, just anything else. I would say with goldfish, the biggest thing is they are a lot of work, in that they do need a lot of water changes, and they need obviously the large tank sizes, which you've said you know, but I would say probably water changes is the biggest thing, and don't overstock the tank. That is another thing. People tend to, because they're so small when you buy them, then they tend to put them in much smaller tanks, but they actually grow very quickly if given the space. So I would definitely go for a big tank, don't overstock it, and a lot of filtration is key, along with water changes. Okay, hello, I'm going to use Prazopo for the first time. Some of my guys, any tips on how to use it? That's one I have only used, I think, once, and that was at the very beginning. It was quite a while ago now, so I don't fully remember exactly what we did with it. I know we did follow the directions on the bottle completely. However, I don't think we had a great deal of success with it, but then it depends what the issue that you've got is. So we did use that, and then we moved on to, I think it was the Maracean 2, and we did have a lot of success with that. But again, it does depend what you're treating for. So Yes, Mark, that is right. It says that you need 20 gallons for the first goldfish and 10 thereafter. I would say that I totally agree with that. That is what we follow. We have 4 goldfish in a 55-gallon tank. So yeah, I definitely agree with those recommendations. Jordan asks, what type of beta is the little sick guy? He is he is a Dumbo male placot, but to look at him right now, you wouldn't have a clue what he is. His fins are so badly chewed up, and he just looks in a right mess. His front fins are so raggedy that he just doesn't look like a Dumbo at all. So I'm hoping that we can get him better so that he does look the way he should. So he is a cute little guy, but he is very, very sick. So I don't know whether he'll make it or not, but we're certainly going to do our best. So, okay. Denise asks, I would like a rose-tailed beta. Do you think they are more prone to mutilation than other betas? Yes, I do. And that for me is just from personal experience, but also from just finding out that they are actually a throwback in that they are ones that technically in the beginning were culled, but then as a few seemed to make it into the stores, they became very, very popular, and it's because of their extended rays, and they've sort of broken out multiple times, which means that the fins get very, very heavy, and that is why that in beta fish that have very extensive fins, you will see that they are more prone to fin bite. And unfortunately, we did get a rose tail before I knew that, and I definitely wouldn't get another one because he has done nothing but fin bite to the point that I don't think he's actually going to survive much longer. He's done it so severely. We have tried treating him, we've tried everything to do with changing the tank. He's in a planted, heated, filtered tank, and he just still would keep chewing his fins. So that is not a beta I would recommend anybody getting. Okay, what else have we got here? Why do my tanks go cloudy when I first set them up? Sometimes it's just down to the substrate. It depends on your substrate, and that can send a tank to go cloudy. Sometimes it can just be an algae bloom, and that can do it. But usually with a tank, most people, when they set up a tank and it goes cloudy, it's not an issue that we've really ever dealt with, only once actually. And I did extensive research on it, and what I found was that most people would just keep doing water changes, and that can actually make it a lot worse. So what I would do is, if it's not doing any harm to your fish, is I would actually leave it and just do a regular water change schedule, and it should clear up. Usually they will clear up within a week if you can just put up with it for that long. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, Laura says, I upload my YouTube videos on my phone because my laptop is very glitchy. I don't know how to put my thumbnail on my videos from my phone, if that makes sense. Do you know how to? I don't. I use my iPad to do most of mine. Sometimes I'll use the computer, but for the most part, I use the iPad. And I just know that it's in settings. I do know that you used to have to have 100 subscribers before you could do custom thumbnails, but I'm not sure if that has changed. So maybe, I don't know, maybe do a search to see if you can find out if that has changed or not. But I know that when I started almost a year ago, you did have to have, I think it was 100 subscribers before they would let you do custom thumbnails. And then usually in the edit section under Video Manager, usually it gives you the option to change or do a custom thumbnail. Neon Tetra Aquarius, you should start a shrimp tank. But do you know, I would love to do a shrimp tank. My only issue is the pH where we live is very, very high. And I have done testing in tanks to see if I can keep it stable, but I just haven't been able to. And I don't want to be doing chemicals in a tank and doing all that sort of stuff. So I've sort of given up on the idea of that, but I just love the cherry shrimp, and I would love to do sort of a nano tank with those, but unless I can come up with a viable option to keep the pH lower and very, very stable, then I don't really see it's an option right now. No, it's Laura. It's what have you got? It's not 10 gallons for a double tail goldfish and 20 for a single tail. Solid Gold said that in one of her videos. Yeah, I know in her earlier videos she did have different to what she says now, but I did watch one of her ones just recently, and she did state that for fancy goldfish it is 10 for the first fish and then 20 thereafter. And for single tail goldfish, I think that she says it's 40 gallons for the first one, but really the single tail, they get way too big unless you have got a very, very large aquarium. They really do get a bit too big for a general aquarium once you've had them for a long time. So they're not that suitable to be in a home aquarium unless you've got a pond that you can then put them in after that. Love Beta says, how many guppies can I keep in a 3-gallon tank? That's way too small for guppies. Minimum would be 10 gallons. They're an extremely active fish, and so 3 gallons would be way too small for that. Emily says, I'm so late, I was trying to be early. You're not late, so don't worry. Hi, Fluffins and Feathers and the Reaper MC. Okay, would you get tiger barbs? Not to go in with beta fish, no. If I was doing maybe a community tank without beta fish and other suitable fish, then yes, I would possibly do tiger barbs. I do think they're actually a nice looking fish and a very interactive fish, but they can sometimes be very aggressive. However, if you do get a large group of them, then they tend to be just aggressive amongst themselves. Okay, so Love Betas. My beta lost its colour. How can I treat it? It really depends what is wrong with it. Is your tank heated and filtered? Very often a loss of colour can be a very low water temperature. It can also be that it's just completely stressed out. So maybe check your water parameters. Make sure that you've not got any ammonia or nitrite in the tank. Other than that, it's really difficult to say. If you've got Instagram and you want to DM me a message and we can talk on there, I'd be quite happy to do that. My details for Instagram, Facebook and our website will all be in the description box when this video is loaded by YouTube. Okay, Emily McDonald asks, which plants can grow in a 10-gallon tank with only a beta and gravel alone? Many people have told me nothing. Okay, most plants, the beginner plants, I would go with for low light and in gravel with absolutely nothing. You may get away with Anubias because they will near enough grow in anything. Not all types, but most will. And Amazon Sword. Now, we have done Amazon Sword in most of our tanks, and several of our tanks, they are sand tanks, and right now I've got Amazon Sword growing in one of them, and also Bacopa, that's another one, and there's absolutely nothing in there other than the beta fish, and they are growing really, really well. So all I would say is just give it a go. If you can get root tabs, that is a really cheap option, and the best place that we found to buy them is on our Amazon. We use the Flourish root tabs, but there are different types that are cheaper than that, and you just put several of those in the tank and they will feed the plants. So that is a really cheap option, but we try to stick with the easy care plants because we just want to inspire people to at least try them. And we only started using live plants about 8 months ago, and now all our tanks are beginner sort of low-tech plants, and we absolutely love them. Okay, let's see. What are your favourite fish for community tanks? Assuming that a beta fish isn't in the tank, I would say denison barbs. I like clown loaches. I like Corey's. There's all sorts that I really like, but again, it depends what you want in. But my absolute favourite is the Dennis and Barb and Clown Loaches and Corey's. I would say are my three favourites. Would you be willing or want to try keeping maybe dwarf gouramis? I hear that they are kind of like bettas. I, in the past, have kept gouramis, and they're not particularly my most favourite fish. They do look good, but they can get aggressive sometimes, and they don't really do anything for me. They are a little like betta fish. They can't go with betta fish, typically speaking. They will usually fight, but it's not particularly a fish that I'm that interested in. Fantastic Fish says hi. Hi. Fishboy11, how long shall I let my tank cycle before adding fish? This one is a difficult one. There are so many differing opinions on this. And if you already have another fish tank, then you can use cycle media from that tank. But if you don't, then it is typically anything from 2 to 4 weeks, or even 4 to 6 weeks. It really depends how you do it. If you use something like Tetra Safe Start, that's the beneficial bacteria in a bottle, then that will kickstart your tank, but you do need a source of ammonia as well. So you can either use something like Dr. Tim's ammonium, or you can add fish food to the tank periodically, and you'll be able to then get the cycle going that way. But it really does depend on sort of what cycle you're wanting to do, and whether you're wanting to do it sort of on the quicker side or slower. The quickest we've ever done is about 2 weeks, and that was without adding fish, and that was how we did it. We added food every day, we did regular water changes, but we did do the Tetra Safe Start, and that really did make a difference. Love Beta says, what can I keep in a 3-gallon tank? Either snails or betta fish. There's very little that can live in a 3-gallon tank. I would say they are more suited to betta fish. So betta fish and a snail, or if you just wanted snails, then snails. Yeah, also actually you could do it as a nano tank with shrimp as well. That is the smaller varieties of shrimp that would possibly be. But you do have to remember with the smaller tanks that they can often be harder to take care of. And what I mean by that is very often the parameters are more difficult to keep level. So I would say that I know in our 2.5-gallon tanks that I do have to sort of watch the levels, and when I'm doing the water changes, I do need to be careful, because it is a lot easier to throw a smaller tank off balance. Oh, okay. Neon Tetra Aquarius says I could keep cardinal shrimp maybe. They love high pHs, I think. I will have to look into that one then, because I really would like a shrimp tank. I just think they're such funny little things. So, what is the best plant for low light? Again, some Amazon sword, Anubias, Bacopa does well. Jungle Val we have found does well, because we don't have any fancy lighting on our tanks. They are LED lighting, but it's not expensive, and we've done very well with Amazon sword, Bacopa, Anubias, Jungle Val, and we've just started with Lobelia cardinalis, and that is doing really well as well. So I would say any of those, but I would recommend using the root tabs. But having said that, if you've got, depending what fish you've got in a tank, then the fish waste will also fertilise as well. So okay, so elephants are friends. I know you have some Coreys and female bettas together. Do you think a group of 5 Coreys and 1 female betta coexist in a 10-gallon, or would that be way too small? I would say that that would be too small, although having said that, if it was the pygmy Coreys, you would possibly get away with it, but anything other than the really small ones, I would say not. We have the Julii Coreys, and we've actually got some full-size ones along with the smaller ones, and when I actually look at the full-size ones, even in our 20-gallon, they actually seem that the tank actually seems too small, because they do get to a good size. But maybe with the pygmy, you possibly would get away with that. And as they are bottom swimmers and betta fish typically are middle to top swimmers, then it is possible, but a lot of it does depend obviously on the aggression level of your fish. All right. I'm not so sure about guppy grass. That's not one I've come across, I don't think. Is that a low light or easy to maintain? Do you need CO2 for that neon tetra Aquarius? Okay, Abram, how can I help bettas grow fins back? A lot of it depends on why the fins are gone in the first place. If it is down to fin rot, and then that is water quality, that you've got an issue with your water quality. So you need to make sure that the water quality is pristine, and by that, ideally, you need to be doing daily water changes until you start to see some good growth back on the fins. If it's fin rot and it's gone beyond just water quality being able to help you, then maybe a little aquarium salt and medication. We use Canaplex. I've not actually had a betta with fin rot, but with the ones that we've got stressed out now that aren't betta fish, they're another type of fish, from the gciinc treatment, then we have been using Canaplex and the Maracian 2. That one I've had good success with, but you would need to do that. Now, if it is an issue that they are fin biting, then you need to look at your environment. Now, as we talked about just before, it could be that it is the fish in general. If the fins are too heavy and they just can't cope with the weight of the fins, then it might just be that you do need to change up maybe the environment, give them something that they can rest on nearer the surface. But if it's not a betta with massive fins, then it could be environmental. So you need to take a look at, is the filter too strong? Is the heater at a good temperature? What is the general environment like? And maybe it's an environmental issue that is causing them to fin bite. So there's a lot of different factors, but either way, water quality is a fish's best friend no matter what the fish is. It's always water quality first. So test the water, and then it's then staying on top of keeping that water quality in pristine condition so that the fish doesn't get infection and it can grow back. Somebody's put sneak peek at the 75 gallon. That would be a no. I'm not going to move from here because I don't want any issues with connection. But no, I am not going to do that. We are so close now. It is Tuesday, and the video will be up. So the plants are doing well because they did take a huge beating after the ick outbreak. We did the temperature, and then we tried to treat with temperature, but all the plants started melting back, and then we had to treat with medication for the ick. So it was a case of we just the plants really took a beating, and so the tank did not look too good at all. So right now the plants have actually come back and they are starting to actually look good. So no, I'm going to say no on that one because I don't want to move from where I am, but also Tuesday's not that long to wait. So okay, can I explain how the physics of your DIY filter works, because I don't understand how it works with cleaning. Okay, for those of you that don't know, we do have a video on how to do a DIY filter specifically for betta fish. I mean, you can use it in any tank, but it really is great for betta fish. And the reason for that is because it promotes a really low flow of water. So the physics behind it, or the science behind it, is what happens is the way we have it set up, ours is like a little jar, and then we have the bio, which is the chemical filtration in the bottom. No, the biological filtration is in the bottom, and so that is the bio rings, and then we have the what do we have next? The floss is next, and then we have the sponge on top. And then what happens is you put the tubing in and the air stone into the middle, and that creates a flow of water down through the top of the sponge and then back up through the air stone, and so you get the flow of water that way, so that it sort of pulls in through the top of the sponge at the top, which will catch the big particles, and then the floss lower down, that will then get you fine particles, because you don't want your biological filtration to get dirty, because that makes it harder for the beneficial bacteria to actually grow. So that's how it works. So it sort of pulls in the water from the top, and then the air bubbles obviously then suck the water through and bring it out through the top. So I hope that helps. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, Love Beta says, my nerite snail laid lots of eggs. Will they hatch? No, they will not hatch. You need a brackish water, so whilst it doesn't stop them breeding in a tank and laying lots of eggs, but they will not actually hatch. The only ones that will hatch are your like mystery snails, where they will lay the eggs above the waterline. They will hatch in a freshwater aquarium, but nerite snails, it is extremely rare for that to happen. Do I know any? So do I know any cheap 10-gallon tanks? We usually do the dollar per gallon sale at Petco, and then we then do our own filtration, and very often that works out a lot cheaper than buying a kit. But for kits, I think Walmart have a 10-gallon, I think it is, for about $20-25. But other than that, I don't really know any, because we set all our tanks up as separates, because we make our own lids, and then we like to choose what filtration and lights are going on the tank depending what we're going to be using it for. Lily Robinson says, so an LED can grow plants? Absolutely. We have LEDs on all of our tanks, and they are all planted apart from the goldfish tank, and we have no issue growing plants whatsoever. In most of my videos, in the description boxes, you will see a general list of what we use on the tanks, and there are links that you can go through and take a look at them. We do that in most of our videos, or if we're specifically talking about things, you will always find extra information in the description box. Isaiah, how do you take care of Bacopa? It's so easy. You just put it in your gravel, and again, ideally, if you can use root tabs, if you're not dosing or CO2, it does not need CO2, and that is basically it. It will grow. It will even grow floating on the top of a tank as well. We have several of them where you can just cut the stems and then just float them on the top of the tank, and so they become a good cover. And we actually do that in several of our beta tanks, especially with Henry, our Dumbo male beta. He is now getting a lot older, and so he loves to hang out at the top of the tank, and so we cut the Bacopa up and we just float it at the top of the tank, and he just hangs over the top of it, and the roots will grow down, and then he's able to then sort of like just flop over those as well. So that is a really quick growing plant as well. Wait till you see the growth in our 75-gallon in such a short space of time. And that is even with us having a really hard time with the tank, with the high temperatures and all the treatment that we've had to do. So it's virtually impossible to kill that plant. And then as it grows, you can then just cut the stems and put the stem in the gravel or in your substrate, and then it will start growing again. You have some kind of leeches that are on your glass. Do you know if they're harmful or not? Most things that you find in a tank are not harmful. However, without actually seeing it, then I don't really know. Again, if you want to send me a DM on Instagram with a picture, then you're welcome to do that, or either Facebook as well, but I do respond a lot quicker on Instagram. Nathaniel says, can 5 neon tetras and a 1 male beta live in a 5.5-gallon tank? I personally say that would be too small. Only because neon tetras, they do need to be in groups, which you have stated 5, which is good, but they are very, very active fish, and so to cram them into such a small area, I wouldn't really advise doing that. Yeah, most people agree with me, they need at least a 10-gallon tank. I'm assuming you're talking the cardinal shrimp. I take it you've looked it up. Okay. They need a temperature of 78, a pH of no less than 7. I think I've found you a match. It does sound like you have, and as it happens, I do have an empty tank right now, but we will see on that. That may be a project for in the future, maybe later in the year. We'll see. We'll see. But thank you for looking that up anyway. I will mark that down. What else have we got? Oh, there's a few people from the UK. Wow, it is late there, so you guys are all up very late. In fact, what time is it in the UK now? Is it about 10:30? Yeah, something like that. So it is late there. Okay, so the Reaper MC, I am planning on getting a fish tank soon, and the only place in my room is near a window. I can definitely leave the window shut. Some light still gets in. Should I be worried about algae? Usually, when you've got a tank close to a window, yes, it can promote algae. However, I do have 3 tanks by windows and I don't have any issue with algae. What I have found is very often it can just be an overproduction of the nutrients in the water. But what I also found was one of the tanks particularly that is by a window and gets a lot of sunlight, and I was having a huge issue with algae. We added the pothos plant into the filter and that has made a huge difference. No more algae. So if you did find that you were having an issue, you could maybe try that, and then after that it is really limiting the light. So it does vary because I have 2 other tanks that are by windows and neither of those have algae issues either. So Puppy Pop 101 says hi. Hello. That is so true. Algae isn't bad, and also I do have snails in all of my tanks as well. Except the goldfish tank. I do have Nerite snails in them all. I usually do one of the bigger ones, either the tiger or the zebra Nerite, and then I'll do one of the smaller ones being the horned Nerite, and I have one of each in all of my tanks. So that does help because they really, really do make a big difference with algae. Let me see, what else have we got? Okay, so you're setting up a 75-litre tank. Unfortunately, I am on gallons, so I'm not sure what the 75 litres is, but you say you're going to cycle it for 2 to 3 weeks and you're going to get filter media from my tank that is up and running, add fish food and do weekly water changes. Yeah, that should work. I would say 75. Oh, okay. I'm being told 75 litres is 20 gallons. Okay, yeah, that should work. I would also, if you can get the Tetra Safe Start, I would also do that because I have used that in setting up all of my tanks, and it really does make a big difference. Neon Tetra Aquarius, I'm assuming you're talking to me. I'm so behind in the chat, so I'm not quite sure, but I'm assuming you're talking to me. I am from Liverpool, England, but I live in the USA. So I do confuse everybody because of my accent, and then I will talk about PetSmart and Petco and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I'm from Liverpool, England. Jordan says, I'd say somewhere from north of England. You are correct. How many tanks do we have? We currently have 7 set up right now. Fluffins and feathers, what are some fish you would like to have in the future? Oh boy. My husband has just said puffer fish. So he is desperate for puffer fish. Maybe some pea puffers. So I don't know, maybe we will look into that. We need to find more space because we're running out of space with all the tanks. So how do you spell, I'm assuming you're saying Bacopa, it's Bacopa. OPA. Oh, Claire. Hi, Claire. Oh, Noah, are you up at this time of night watching? Oh my goodness. You two are up way too late, especially you, Noah. You should be in bed. Oh, thank you, Neon Tetra Aquarius. Thank you very, very much. Yes, please like and please share. If we do get a good response, we will do these more more regularly. But right now, my next one will probably not be until our 1 year anniversary on YouTube, which is the 7th of February, and then I'll probably do one that weekend. So that will be my next one, I think. Joy says, I used Canaplex and Myrcene 2 for beta fin rot or loss. It did not work. Should I dose again? I'm not sure if the beta is old, but don't want to over medicate. If you've already done a round and it didn't work, I possibly wouldn't do another one. I would maybe, it depends again how severe it is, but if you're in a position that you could do daily 100% water changes, that can often make a very, very big difference. So if you're in a position to be able to do that in a tank, then maybe try that and just see if that helps. Lily Robinson, my beta got swim bladder, but it went away, and now he sits at the bottom of the tank. Before swim bladder, he was really active. Do you know what is wrong? Swim bladder is, there's a great deal of misconception on swim bladder. Swim bladder is actually it is a fault with the fish. It is not a condition. So some betas will get bloated and constipated, and everyone will say it's got swim bladder. But it doesn't actually have swim bladder. All it is constipated, and so the swim bladder has been pushed out of place, causing it to float. But true swim bladder, that is when the fish is born with a faulty swim bladder. Now, during the course of life, obviously a swim bladder can become faulty, but it is not something that then can be actually cured. So there is a lot of misconception about it out there that you just feed a pea and that takes care of swim bladder. It's not. A pea will take care of a constipated fish who exhibits the symptoms of swim bladder, but it doesn't actually have swim bladder. So I would say that there's probably an underlying problem if he's gone from being very active to now sitting on the bottom. I would maybe check, always, when a beta is sick, the first things you should always do is make sure that the tank is warm enough, so 78 to 80 degrees, and also that the current in the tank is not too strong, causing stress to the fish. But I would say the number one thing is to check water parameters. Make sure that there's no ammonia, there's no nitrite, and the nitrates aren't too high as well. So I would say make sure that you check all those. And again, if you want to DM me on Instagram, then we can talk about that further. Okay, what time is it there? Right now it is 5:45 here. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 5:45. The Reaper MC says, I find your aquascapes very beautiful, and my question is, when you do your scapes, do you have a strategy or do you just do it as you go along? Because we film them, we do have a bit more of a strategy. We sort of brainstorm ideas of how we'd like it to look, or the ideas we've got between them, because I do so much of this with my husband. Very often you will see his hands and maybe his back and his side, but he does all this with me. I'm just the face, unfortunately for you lot. I'm just the face. But so we will brainstorm between us all, and then we will sort of then lay it out in an empty tank, and we'll move things around, and you will actually see from the 75-gallon one that what you will see as the initial finished thing when it's done is not how it looks now. We've sort of played around with it, we've moved plants around more, we've sort of messed around with it a great deal. So yeah, we just sort of start with an empty tank. We sort of put everything in before doing the substrate and the water. We'll set out the pattern of what we want. So yeah, we just mess around with it, and that's, I would say, the way to go in doing that. Sucking catfish in Are we talking about Cory cats? I'm not sure what you're talking about there, Emily, whether you're talking about Cory cats or plecos maybe. I'm not quite sure. If you're talking about Corys, I would say in a 10 gallon only pygmy, because the other ones get too big and you do need larger groups. They do much, much better in larger groups. If you're talking about Plecostomus and that type, then I would say that unless you were going to get one of the much smaller ones, and there aren't that many of them out there, then a 10 gallon would be too small. But typically, beta fish can go with plex. We actually, one of the fish that we did add in the 75 is a plec, and we've had no issues with the females. In fact, our female betas have been absolutely amazing in that they have accepted everything that we've put in there. We've had no issues whatsoever. So I think all the extra space they've got with it being a 75 gallon has made a huge difference. How many of species do you have? Can you list them? Well, that would be giving away what we've got in the 75, so I'm going to say no to that. But I mean, you do know that we've already got Corys, we have beta fish, and we have goldfish, and obviously I've just listed the pleco. We haven't got all the fish that we're going to be putting in the 75 gallon yet because of the issues we've had. Then our quarantine tank has been used a great deal, and so we've got fish in there right now that we're waiting to be able to move over into the 75 gallon. So I think that it's going to be a while till it's fully stocked and that you see the true stock that are going into the tank. Aquarium Co-op fan. I am a fan of Aquarium Co-op as well. I do watch his live streams and I do watch all of his videos. Okay, what air pumps do you use for your 2.5 gallon? We use the Tetra Whisper, I think it is, and we own, I think it's 5 or 6 of them, and we have no issues with them whatsoever. They are really good, and they are quiet as well. I think if you push them to the limits, they can get quite noisy, but typically speaking, they are very quiet. So I do recommend those, and we have 2.5 gallons and a 10 gallon tank running off one, I think it's a 20 gallon, 10 to 20 gallon Tetra Whisper pump right now. So, okay. My internet connection went bad. Can you tell me again? I have really small leeches that sit on my glass. Are they harmful? Without seeing them, I really don't know. But it could be something like planaria. I'm not sure without seeing them. But typically things that you find in your tank aren't harmful. But without seeing it, I don't know. Again, if you want to DM me on Instagram, then by all means do that and I can take a look at it for you. Jack Smith, do you know a way I could modify a canister filter to filter 2 tanks at different heights? Do you know a way I could modify a canister filter to filter 2 tanks? So 1 canister filter on 2 different tanks? I don't. That would be something maybe my husband could work out, but no, I don't. I don't know on that one, Jack. We just do the 1 tank, and especially if they're at different tanks, then I don't know. So, do have, okay. What made you love betas? What made me love betas? I think just the fact that they're just so interactive. They are so, when you go to the tank, they're just there. They want to interact with you all the time. I do also think that it's the colours, the fins, there's just such a variety out there. There's so many different options of the same species, and so I just think that they're just such a very pretty fish, and on the whole, they are easy to care for as long as you're obviously willing to put the work in. And when I say work, we're talking about once a week in water change and just giving them a good setup. So they're just such a lovely fish. How big is our quarantine tank? The one we're using right now is a 20 gallon. It's usually 10, but we're using the 20 right now, and that's just because of the quantity of fish that we've had in and out of it. And also some of the fish are a bit bigger, and they like a lot of room to swim. So we've been using a 20 gallon, which does mean more medication, but it's the welfare of the fish that we're going for. So, all right. Okay, so how many bettas do I have? Also, have I ever thought about breeding them? Right now we have 12 bettas in total. I have thought about breeding, but it's the time and the cost on the setup. It's a huge commitment, lots and lots and lots of water changes, and it's not just the setup, but also once you've got viable babies, you then have to separate male and female, and then eventually you do have to separate all the males out. So I think if I did have an outlet for selling fish, I just knew I could sell them, then it's something that I would possibly consider doing. But right now, it's not something I would do, and it's also very, very time consuming. I have spoken with several breeders, and you do have to be very, very into it to do it because it is so time consuming. Okay, what is the smallest tank size that you have for your bettas? Mine is a 2.5 gallon. That is the smallest that we've got at the moment, and I would say that if you can do 5 gallons, I am leaning towards bigger is better. However, I do have, we've actually just taken one out of a 5 gallon because he was not happy and put him in a 2.5 and he stopped fin biting. And so I do think a lot of it is on the specific fish, but I wouldn't go any smaller than 2.5 gallons. And we have 2.5 gallons set up right now. Taylor's Tank Centre. Hi, Tyler. Is it Tyler's? Tyler's Tank Centre. Sorry. Tyler's Tank Centre. Hi, Life with Pets. I love your channel. Thank you very much. What is your favourite breed of betta fish? My favourite breed of betta fish? Well, oh boy, my favourite. I think the placottes. I'm really into them right now. We have quite a few of those, but I also do love the veil tails. We had veil tails for years and years and years. We've had betta fish for about 12, 14 years in total, and veil tails probably were my first love, and I still always have to have one in my collection. But I do like the placottes. I've really got into those, and I am starting to sort of look at more of the wild bred bettas. There's a few channels that have been popping up, and they have really piqued my interest as well. So you're in Hereford. Yes, it's getting very late in England. That was one of the reasons I actually picked 5 o'clock, which is early for over here usually to do a live stream, but I did pick a bit earlier because on the last live stream we did have quite a few from England. So okay. Oh, you live in Devon, Jack. My husband's family come from Devon. Do I have one community tank? Do I have a community tank? If you don't, would you consider having one? I do consider my female betta tank a community tank, and that's simply because I have other fish in it. So I do consider that one as a community tank. So we do have some projects coming up where we might be doing some more of those with dividing tanks, but that's giving too much away. So but yeah, we do have some different projects coming up in the next few months. Do you think some goldfish are too modified? Yes, I absolutely do. There's some types of goldfish that I would definitely not have. I do think that they are pushing the boundaries, and I just think it's really sad for the fish because it does shorten their lifespan so much. Is 2.5 gallons enough for one male betta fish? Yes, it is. A 2.5 gallon is absolutely perfect. I would just say make sure that you add a suitable filter. That's the only issue with 2.5 gallon tanks, is finding a filter that is not too strong. So just be very, very careful on the filter that you choose and also the heater. They're the two main things. The smaller the tank, sometimes it is harder to find the appropriate things, especially for betta fish because they don't like a fast flow of water. Okay, Aquarium Co-op, hey, just stopping by, watching while I work in the studio. Thank you so much. It was you that inspired me to do the live streams. I watch so many of your live streams, and it was you that inspired me to do it. So thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate that. When can you tell if your fish is unhappy? I would say loss of colour is a big telltale sign if a fish is not happy. Sometimes a fish is not generally sick, but they can be stressed out by their environment, and so they will sort of, their colour will wash out a great deal. So I would say that loss of colour is probably the biggest factor, but also if they're sitting on the bottom, or they're just hanging around at the top, or a lot of betta fish you'll hear they're just sitting on a filter or they're sitting on a heater, and betta fish should be active. They're not an overactive fish, but they shouldn't be just hanging around all the time unless they're older. Like say our Dumbo male, Henry, our Dumbo male, he is getting older and he does have heavy fins. It's been amazing really that he hasn't been fin biting, but he does tend to hang around a lot more now, but then he is getting a lot older. But definitely colour loss, I would say, is one of the big factors. Is it okay if my betta is in a 70 gallon? I would say absolutely. We have just set up a 75 gallon with ours, and I did do a lot of research on it before doing it. We didn't just decide to do a much bigger tank and put them, because they were originally in a 20 gallon, and we didn't just decide to up them without doing the research. I did do a lot of research, and I did go on several large betta fish sites, and I asked that very question, is a 75 gallon okay because of the height? Because let's face it, betta fish do prefer shallower water, and obviously a 70 gallon is very, very deep. So we did do a lot of research on that, but what I have found with the girls is because we've put water lettuce in the top, then they are very, very comfortable hanging out in the top of the tank. So I would say that if you're going to do a bigger tank that's much deeper, like a 55 or a 70 or 75, then just make sure that there are plenty of plants that are at the top of the tank, whether you do something like the bacopa that would float, or the water lettuce that they can hide in, and then that way they can stay nearer the surface. Mine do actually stay along the bottom a lot. My betta fish, I don't know about anybody else, but my betta fish, they just love anubias plants. I think it's probably the leaves, and they can hide under the leaves. But yeah, 70 gallons, I would say no problem at all. Our girls are very, very happy in the 75. Laura Bond, I love placat bettas, so do I. Yes, they are one of my favourites. Who is your favourite YouTube? There's a lot of channels I like. I like Aquarium Co-op. I like Solid Gold. That is another one. They are two very, very solid YouTube accounts. I like accounts that give solid information and that also aren't afraid to say if they don't know something. As well, that sort of I think that is a good quality. But I would say right now, Aquarium Co-op, I do watch his videos. I love his daily dose. I hope he keeps doing them. And I do like Solid Gold as well. That is another really good account. I've just done the 70 gallon. Yes, that is okay to put them in the 70 gallon. No, I don't have any other animals besides dogs and fish. We used to have gerbils. I used to be a gerbil breeder several years ago, and we used to be very, very big into that. And we used to have rats, and we used to have English budgies. Your parakeets are very similar, but the English budgie is bigger, quite a bit bigger than the American parakeet. And yeah, we had rats, gerbils, and then we used to have a cockatiel as well. But sadly, when we moved to the USA, he had to stay in the UK, which was very, very sad because he was my baby. So he sadly couldn't come with us. But no, we have dogs and fish right now, and that is more than enough for me. Okay, what do you think about glowfish? Personally, I think it is cruel. They inject the dye into the pregnant females. Okay, with glowfish are very different to dyed fish. There are two different types. And with the glowfish, they are actually they are now, when they breed, they are now actually glowfish. So there's no injecting goes on anymore. I used to think the very same thing until I did the interview at Seagrass Farms. So if you haven't seen that interview, go on over and check that video out. I got the opportunity to go to Seagrass Farms and do an interview with them, and then I then went back and did a beta fish video with them as well. But he told me all about the process for glowfish, and it's basically a gene they took from a sea coral and they put it into the fish that you now see today as glowfish. But now when those fish are born, they all do glow, so there's no injecting. Now they do still do some fish where they are injecting, and no, I don't agree with that at all. I think that is exceptionally cruel. But with the glowfish, that is now down to genetics. So like I say, if you want to hear more about it, go over and watch that video, because he does go into it a lot more, because Seagrass actually have been responsible for some of the glowfish that you see, particularly the red glowfish that has not long come out. I think it came out in November, and we got to see it right after it came out, and that was the tiger barb, I think it was, and they've just done it as a red glowfish. So okay, you have a question about your female beta. You want to ask the question in the chat, and then I can see if I can answer that for you. Marissa, I love all your videos. Thank you very, very much. Okay, what do we feed our female betas? We feed all our betas the Spectrum beta pellets, but we also feed them the Spectrum community food, because the ingredients are near enough the same, but we do have the different types just to change it up. We also feed frozen bloodworm and frozen brine shrimp. And then I do feed peas periodically, just because they absolutely love them, but I don't do that very often. And then mine also love the shrimp pellets that we feed, the Corys. They absolutely love those as well. So I do have to be careful with the females, because with them being in the community tank with other fish, I do have to watch that we don't overfeed them, and sometimes that can get very difficult. Where is the best place to buy healthy beta fish? I guess a lot of it depends on your location. I know Aquarium Co-op, they do sell beta fish. I don't know if they've got any online right now, because I think shipping is difficult with weather at the moment. In some places it's way too cold to ship. There is also another company called Bettas and Art. They're on Instagram. They do some really nice beta fish as well. We've got one of theirs, and she is a beautiful girl and very, very healthy. But typically we do get most of ours from PetSmart and Petco, and it's basically finding a store that take care of them properly, because when we went to Seagrass Farms and we saw that the beta fish, they were extremely healthy, and we did see hundreds of them, and they were extremely healthy. There seems to be a huge gap in what is shipped out, which are very healthy, and then the care at the pet stores. That does make a big difference. So you really do either need to find a good online source, or find a good pet store close to you that does take good care of them. I don't know anything about shrimp. Maybe Neon Tetra Aquarius will be able to help you with that one. I know that he does do shrimps. Do I think betas need a filter? That is a very loaded question. I personally do think they need a filter, and the only reason I say that is because before we sort of really got into beta fish, we didn't do filters and we didn't do heaters. However, our house does stay at 78 degrees, so for us heaters are not an issue, except for a few months in the year. However, with filters, unless you are willing to do water changes every 2 to 3 days, and I mean 100% water changes every 2 to 3 days, then you really do need a filter. And the reason I say that is I did extensive testing, water testing, doing this, and I found that after 2 to 3 days, the ammonia levels in the water are just so toxic to a fish that it's just cruel, because it's burning them. That's what ammonia does, it burns them. So I would say they do definitely need a filter. It is easy to, I mean, a sponge filter, they are very, very cheap, and I do think sponge filters are a great option for betas, because the flow level in a tank is very low, and also doing a DIY filter. We do have videos on that as well. Doing a DIY filter, again, that is a good option as well. Okay, thanks for the inspiration. My beta Jupiter lives in a tank with an airite, snail, and lots of plants you recommend. Thinking of upgrading him to a 10-gallon. Any tips? That would be fantastic, upgrading to a 10-gallon. I would just say, if it's working out what you've done in the tank that you've got now, then I would just say just duplicate what you have done. When setting up the 10-gallon, if you have a filter, then you would be able to just go straight into the full tank setup because it should already be cycled. So if it's working out now what you've done, then I would say just go ahead and do what you're doing. Other people love solid gold. That is great. How many female bettas can you put in a 20-gallon? What is the ratio of gallon per fish? Okay, how many female bettas in a 20-gallon? I saw this question asked not that long ago on a big betta fish forum that I'm on Facebook. And I was quite shocked by how many people were saying. People were saying sort of 8 to 10 to 12 betta fish. And whilst if they were regular community fish, to me, there'd be no problem with that. But I found that with my girls, 6 was sort of the limit. We did try a 7th, and there obviously just wasn't enough space in the tank for them to have that territory of their own. So for me personally, I would say 6. I'm sure a lot of other people would maybe say more than that, but I'm just speaking from my experience. And I wouldn't really go by the ratio per gallon because I don't think where betta fish concerned it really applies, because in a 20-gallon you could maybe put sort of like 10, 12, 14 fish and it'd be okay, whereas if you were to put that many female bettas, it would just be too many. I see lots of people like solid gold. That is very, very good. Do I have any advice for newer channels? I would just say upload regularly and do good thumbnails and just interact as well. That is one thing I have found is huge. Even with, sometimes with a lot of the bigger channels, there's no interaction, and that is something that Aquarium Co-op Corey is really, really good at. He does try to answer people's questions and people's issues, and so that he's got a really good presence, and I do think that that is really important. I try to answer near enough every comment we get on a video. Now sometimes the comments get messed up and I do miss them, but it's certainly not a deliberate thing, and sometimes it doesn't notify me that I've had comments, and then somebody will say that they replied, or they'll message me, why didn't you reply? And it was because I didn't get the comment. But I would just say upload consistently and just make sure that what you're uploading is good content, I guess, that, you know, it's what people want to see, and just make sure that if it's a tutorial or it's informational, just that your facts are as good as that you're able to get them. Okay, Corey's trying to hang his blinds in his studio. His studio is looking really, really good. I do like the paint colour that he chose, so thank you, Claire. Very supportive. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, what kind of peas are safe to feed and how much? We do, I just use the little green peas. They're just, I think they're from Publix. I'm not quite sure where you live, but I just get them in Publix frozen peas, and they're just the small ones. And then I usually cook them in the microwave for about 30 to 40 seconds, and then you do need to take the skin off. And if you're talking about for goldfish, we feed quite a lot of peas, but if you're talking about for betta fish, then I do 1 pea and then I mash up, it's sort of like splits into 2 halves, and then I just mash it up, and I only feed a very, very small portion of it, and I've never had issues with bloat with any of my betta fish, and I don't know whether it's down to the peas or the feeding, but they just seem to really like peas, so it doesn't do them any harm, and I do think if nothing else it would just help clear them out from time to time, so it would help prevent any floating issues. Yes, you are very fortunate if pets at home keep their bettas all in the same tank. That is very often a good option, especially if they all appear to be getting on. The only thing I would say is just make sure you check for the stress stripes, because that's a big telltale to whether they are actually getting on, and obviously the nipped fins as well. So Neon Tetra Aquarius is back. Somebody was asking how to breed a Marno shrimp, and I know nothing about shrimp right now, so you're the go-to guy, or if Corey's on and Corey wants to answer it, then by all means go ahead. What are some low maintenance plants that are good for betta tanks that you recommend for a beginner? When we started out, which was about 8 months ago with plants, we just did Amazon sword, we did Anubias, we did Bacopa and Jungle Val, and we had great success with all of those. Our lights are not fancy lights, it's just LED lighting, they're not expensive, and the only thing that we did do was add root tabs, and I use the Flourish root tabs, but I am open to maybe trying something different. I am going to look into different options because they are expensive, and we are trying with this channel to sort of inspire people to try plants, because we have been in fish keeping for over 20 years and I have always steered clear of live plants because I just thought that they were so much hard work and we'd never be able to keep them alive. However, I cannot believe how easy it's actually been. It's been very, very easy. And so we're trying to inspire people to try live plants because they are easy. So we are trying with our tanks to keep everything low maintenance, to show that it is doable and that it is easy. And so all our plants are what they would class as beginner plants, and all we've used in most of our tanks are the Flourish root tabs, and we've even had great success growing plants in sand with just root tabs. But like I say, I am open to maybe trying some different root tabs. I just haven't found any that I like at the moment. And also with the 75 gallon, I probably am going to dose with fertilizer just because it's a much bigger tank, and obviously with that many plants in there, I think it may need a bit of help. So I'm on the search right now as well for a good fertilizer. Okay, I clean my fish's tank manually every week because my store I bought it from said it was fine. I did that with my old betta and it lasted 3 years. Why do you say 2 to 3 days? Okay, I'm assuming you don't have a filter in the tank, and if that is the case, bettas can survive in really bad conditions. That is just the fish's nature. They can survive in water that is less than acceptable. So I say 2 to 3 days because in the testing that I did, I found that after, I think it was on the 3rd day, the levels of ammonia were very, very high. And that basically means that your fish is living in toxic water, which means its gills and its scales and its fins are being burned. So whilst your fish may have lasted that long, and it may have been fine, but because it lasted that long, it doesn't mean it thrived. It possibly just survived. So it really does depend. But if you don't have a filter, I would recommend at least doing the water twice a week at the very, very least. How old is your oldest betta? Henry is our oldest betta right now, and I think he is coming on 2.5 or 3. I can't remember. And we have so many that I have them all written down when we got them and then their approximate age. Because when we went to Seagrass Farms, they did actually give us the sort of how you work out aging, and the way you do that, for those that are interested, they said that the suppliers, they say that the females are 4 to 6 months and the males are 8 to 10 months old. So the more finnage that your male has, the older they will be. And then you've got to factor in the time they may have sat at the store as well. So typically a male betta is 8 to 10 months old when you actually get it. So I am basing it on that. And when we got Henry, he was actually quite big. So I think he's probably coming on 3. Aquarium Boy 123, hello, hi there, thank you for joining us. What is the smallest group of female bettas you suggest? I would say 5. Now, there's again a lot of debate on this one, and I'm not sure why people came up with the number 5. It's a bit like with Corey's, they say groups of 5, or different types of fish, they say they should be in certain numbers. And I'm assuming somebody somewhere has done studies on all of these. So with females, the biggest thing is, to me, it's a group of 5. We did go down to a group of 4 because we did lose one. This is way back, and we did find that they did start bickering amongst them, and we started getting a lot of fin nipping, which prior to that we'd had no issue with. So we then went ahead and got another one, and we went through introducing them, and that was then everything became okay again. So we to me, 5 is a good number. I hear a lot of people saying that they do 2 and 3, and then they'll contact me and say that they've either killed each other or there's a lot of stress in the tank. So the fewer you have, the more aggression they have. Typically, the more aggression they have to each other. So, okay. Pitbull Lover, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I feel like people on YouTube like to see hauls, but it is not like people would just go and buy things they don't need just to do a haul. I like to watch people setting up their tanks. Yeah, I did do a few haul videos in the beginning, but I haven't done one for a long time. I did find that they initially get good views, but then after that they don't. It doesn't sort of tend to do very well. So, okay. Okay, minimum volume for a male beta, I would say, is 2.5 gallons. I mean, bigger is always better. And again, a lot of people have differing opinions, but the general overall opinion is 2.5 gallons for a beta fish. So, okay, I'm not sure if I've missed any questions here or not. I'm not too sure. If I have, then just go ahead and ask them again. I'm not that sure how low down I am in the chats. So, okay, there really was no need for that one. Let me just remove that, thank you. Okay, so, thank you very much. Okay, can you use Betafix in still water? There seems to be a lot of differing opinions on Betafix, and I don't really know where I stand with this one. A lot of people seem to think that it causes an issue with their lung organ, but I haven't done enough research to go into it. But I do know that it does say with anything like Malafix and Primafix and Betafix that there should be aeration in the tank, and so I would definitely use it with something. So if I would add a pump if you were going to use it. Okay. Hello from Texas. Thank you very much. Well, I think we've been going for a little over an hour, so I think I am going to end it here. And thank you guys so much for joining us for our second live stream. I think that we will do another one maybe in a few weeks. It's very hard setting them up because I don't want to clash with anybody else. So this time I did do an announcement that we were doing it, but I only did the announcement this morning. So I think that I would probably do that in the future, maybe just on the day we're going to do it, announce it in the morning, and just hope you guys are available. So, okay, let's block that one. There we go. All right. Okay, since the female betas at Pets at Home are already together, could I have, 7 in an 18-gallon tank, or would I need to stick with the requirements of a normal beta sorority? A lot depends on the fish. You could try 7 in an 18-gallon, especially if they've been brought up together. I would go and observe them at the store first and see how that goes. You know, sort of what you're looking out for is, are the fins chewed up? Are the stress stripes? They're the biggest factors that you need to look for. It's all very well that they live in the same tank, but are they getting on in the same tank? So if you don't see any signs like that, then I would just say that maybe you could give it a go. But with anything like that, you do need to have a backup plan in case it doesn't work out. That's one of the biggest things I hear a lot, is that people have gone out and they've done a sorority and then it's not worked out, and then they've got all these female betas and they don't know what to do with them because they all need to live separately. So you really do need a backup plan. So just make sure that you've got that. So okay guys, I am going to wrap it up here. So hi from Australia. Wow, learn English the natural way. Welcome. Been watching since started. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will do another live stream soon. Okay, bye guys.